Hello and welcome to Origins by the Esports Awards, the podcast that deep dives into the origin stories of our favorite creators, players, and business minds in the gaming industry. My name is Barney Banks, and of course, today is no exception because today we have a triple threat. The founder of Boxer, YouTuber, and Counter Strike commentator. It is, of course, Launders. How's it going, Launders?
Much appreciated. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, got me on an off day here at the Austin Major. So as soon as this done, I'm going back out into the sun.
Oh man, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate your time. I mean, Launders, I think that a good place to start for me personally would be that I've just watched the impeccable CS2 profile on you.
Yeah.
And I feel like I know so much about you, man. Like you're from family history, internet cafes in Montreal with your buddies. But I feel like a good place for us would be let's kick things off by defining two key moments in your life as a gamer. Okay. So let's pick the first out by saying, what is the moment where you first picked up a video game and you were instantly obsessed? What game was that for you and where were you?
That was actually so in the documentary I kind of got into it, but it was in the group home we had got donated a bunch of gifts for Christmas, and I got a Game Boy, like a color, not just a Game Boy regular before Game Boy Color came out. And I think I was literally just playing Tetris, like the default game that comes with it. And I was instantly hooked. It was all I was like hiding underneath staircases. I was skipping, going outside to play with my friends. It was love at first sight, 100%. So the Game Boy, then got into the Pokemon games, Zelda, and everything like that, and I was just kind of blown away at the stories and adventures that they could pack into these little devices. So yeah, it was that Game Boy.
Did you spend an absolute fortune on batteries, I imagine?
Yeah, yeah, very heavy, that old thing, about as heavy as an air conditioner today, I think.
Yeah, I remember that thick, gray Game Boy. Like I had one as well before the colors came out, and they were all slick. They were purple. But the second moment, then I'd like to know is when you decided to pursue a career as a caster in Counter Strike.
Mhm.
How did that come about? Stepping up your game, let's say from tutorial videos on YouTube. Like, was it a car crash the first event you did, or do you kind of feel like you slipped through the cracks and put on a good show?
Yeah, so I think early on I tried to play a little bit in terms of like being a player, and I played one season of ESEA main as an IGL, and we had a really good season. We made playoffs, but after that I was already 24 years old, and I played StarCraft when I was 13. I know you don't go pro when you're 24 years old, so I just wanted to be around it, and I wanted to make money playing games somehow. So I was like, oh, I'll just do content creation. And then when I started doing content creation, I did a little bit of live streaming. I did a little bit of interviewing, and then my friend messaged me. He's like, "You should try casting. Like you might have fun with that. You could be at the live event." So I was like, "Okay, I'll give it a try." And there was a post on the ESA forums. It was from Sadokist, and there was a local LAN that's run in a school in Montreal called LAN ETS that goes on every year. And basically, anyone who's any good in Canada will go to that LAN early on. It's like a rite of passage. And he said the post was they're looking for another caster for no money. Um, we got two tickets for hot dogs each day, no shower, and we slept in the classrooms. And I casted with him at that event for that weekend, and it was. I don't think he would have called it a train wreck. I think for me, looking back, it definitely was. It was very very difficult. I wasn't very good at it. I didn't have any training, but it broke me in 100%. And then from there, I got noticed by both ESEA, now ESL, Face It Group, and CEVO, which was their kind of primary competitor. And I ended up casting for CEVO, and then CEVO MLG, and then now I just do a little bit of everything. But that was the first event I did, and it was very impactful for my career because that was the platform at which the bigger companies found me. Uh, and at that event, funny story, but we slept on the classroom floors. I came more prepared than Matt. I packed a pillow. Matt didn't have anything, and these were cold classroom floors in Montreal in February, if you've ever been at that time of year. And so I had to give him a pair of my pants to sleep on for that event. And I think without that, I'm not sure if we would have made it.
I mean, we talk about these. these additional circumstances that pro players have to deal with when they're competing on LAN, right? So you've got the hot lights, you've got the crowd, you've got the nerves, additional pressures, all these external pressures. But I feel like people don't take into consideration that the same goes for on-air talent. So when you were thrust into that first few events, commentary, were you impacted by that? Was that quite overwhelming? So my first ever event, I got on the desk and I was like, oh my God, there's so much going on. I'm finding it hard to focus.
Yeah, because you're talking to people before the broadcast starts and everyone's just chill, sort of, medium energy. And then as soon as the lights go on, like everybody's incredibly sharp and the energy's way up and you realize it's all live to tape and everything you say is going to be, used against you if you speak incorrectly. So there becomes this pressure instantly, I think, once you go live. And that took many years for me to get comfortable with. But I think it's sort of like driving a car very fast. If you are focused driving that car very fast, you kind of slow down time. But if you're focused on how scary it is to drive a car very fast, then you'll probably crash. And I think that goes for, I think a lot of people who are doing live broadcast stuff can relate to that analogy. I think a lot of it comes down to focus, but the focus comes with the confidence and the confidence comes with the experience. So it's kind of hard to skip steps sometimes.
That's very true. Yeah, words couldn't be truer. I mean, tell me about Scrawny, man, because the community embraced you as this awesome duo. There's only a handful of esports that truly embrace duo casters and don't really deviate. I guess I could say that that leans towards more legacy esports. But was it
Mm.
always sunshine and rainbows with Scrawny?
Yeah, it kind of was. I mean, I kind of am the type of person, I'm very loyal and I sort of refuse to work with people I don't, just really love as people as well. And so Scrawny and I hit it off as friends. And then when we started casting, I think we've made so many strides from a technical perspective as casters since then. But the entire way through, we would be the type we picked up a lot of hobbies together. Like we go climbing. Today we're going to go golfing as we're learning how to do that now. And so inside and outside of commentary, we're always talking about real life stuff together. I went to his house on his birthday. I took a train up to Montreal and his house that I organized with his girlfriend to surprise him on his birthday. And so it's funny because we actually don't play too many games together. But when we are at events, we're pretty much with each other 100% of the time, whether or not we're actually commentating or not. So yeah, great friends from beginning to end.
Well, you've mentioned in previous interviews that you and Scrawny work so well together because you stick to your roles. You stick to color, he sticks to play by play. But what do you think gives you an edge over those other duos?
I think actually in Counter Strike, we've had a long history of hybrid duos, and so even though we use the word traditional in terms of play-by-play and color, there aren't too many other examples of it. So I think that particular strategy has really worked in terms of me improving the most that I can and Scrawny improving the most that I can, and then us both playing to our strengths as best possible. So I think in a lot of other duos, they have the flexibility where one person is pretty good at doing both, and so you understand why they're trying to do it. But I guess if there's one advantage I feel like we have, it's that we lean so heavily, and I don't you don't want to see Scrawny doing color, you don't want to see me doing play by play. And even though that sounds like it's sort of an Achilles heel, if we never wade into those other waters, then what you find is that we just complement each other both extremely well when we're together. So I think that's something that makes us, I'd say, stand out. And even though, again, it's the word traditional, nothing's really traditional in esports, is it?
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, you're obviously doing something right because you guys have reached the Mount Olympus of casting opportunities in Counter Strike, specifically in Paris, the major final. Obviously, you've spoken about this multiple times. The emotional dump after that final closing of that match, it was visible when you guys finished for sure. Now, did you guys have this moment afterwards of like, what next? Or or was it
Mm.
straight like, I want to go back in and do that again?
Yeah, I think, that's definitely like the zenith, right? Getting to cast a major final. It's what, when I casted ETS in 2013, that I was thinking about the entire time. It's what every caster it tries to envision themselves doing as they try very hard to cast sort of, ESEA advanced matches, small local lands. Like you're your big goal. Like the big thing at the end is meant to be the major final. But I really have never tried to personally attach myself to any one achievement in terms of my career, and I think that's why I end up trying to do so many different things. When I show up to cast, I think about the cast that day, and then as I get closer and we get this the ability to cast a major, and then we get the ability to cast a major final. For me, it's just one more day, and so I think when we casted the major final, I had that big dump emotionally because I hadn't really recognized the circumstances. Um, and I think that's for the best. I was maybe a little bit in denial before it was taking place, and the stress was sort of building up. And then when it all came to a close, it was sort of like, okay, wow, that was a lot more than I thought it was going to be. But in terms of what we're going to do for future events, Counter Strike just keeps going, man. I mean, I remember when I started watching from the beginning of CS:GO, I thought I was going to remember every lineup, every roster, every organization, every major final, every placing, every score, and every map. And now I'd literally fail a quiz if it came to like the last 10 years of which who are the grand finalists of every major. And I think because we grew up in a game where it's just nonstop, that also meant that I knew that in a year people are going to forget about Paris and that we have to keep focusing on what's next. And I think one day when we're done, whenever we are done casting, that we can look back and really appreciate a lot of those moments. And we try to be present as they happen as well. But it's important, I think, to remember that if you do set yourself up on trying to throw it all in on one match, well, in 3 months' time, there will be 5 to 6 S-tier tournaments, new champions, retired players that were the best just a few months ago, and you've got to keep that energy as well when you're thinking about being a commentator.
Yeah, and ultimately the players are leading the charge, aren't they? So you kind of go with them, and their next goal is the next tournament. So you kind of can't get left by the wayside, stewing over like what's happened in this tournament because you got to think about the next one. So, yeah, it's a fast moving industry for sure. And I think that for you having your fingers in many pies, obviously to just keep your brain active and to keep focused on other things as well. YouTube was something, or is something, in fact, that you are heavily involved in, and it began with movement tutorials, right? So jump
Mhm.
12 years, 735 videos, and 34 million views later. How would you best describe your YouTube channel now?
I didn't even know those numbers. That's actually really cool. So thank you for that.
No problem.
I those videos were originally the videos didn't have the goal of being viewed a lot. I think when I started playing KZ, there were only 20, 30 players who would be in a server. We see the same guys every night. We'd be there practicing our long jumping and doing this very niche thing in Counter-Strike, which was already a niche game at the time. And the only reason I made the videos was so that I didn't have to show every new person who joined the server how to do the same thing over again. So I was like, here's this amazing technology we have on YouTube, and I can make the tutorial once and then show it to everybody. And then it ends up helping, I think, KZ and this movement game mode grow a lot. And so it sort of made me into a movement YouTuber. But essentially, it felt like at first that I was making a video to send to my friends on Discord just to teach them something. And then it grew into something else, which I think is the best way to to get into anything if you want to be a content creator. But I know we'll get into that in a little bit later.
And how about now? Like the style has shifted. Obviously, you're not making those movement videos anymore. Now your style is kind of, I don't know, like you talk about topics within the Counter Strike world, and but it's done with this originality. It's going to sound stupid from me, but usually
Go for it.
when you find YouTubers, vloggers, style and their style and identity is quite often transferable. You can see who their content is inspired by because everyone is kind of blending into one, it feels like, on YouTube. But I feel like your videos are really original. Do you still edit all of your own stuff, and do you still, you know, uh, have your own set style in your mind?
I think I incrementally. So each year at the beginning of the year, I go for a couple of long walks. I really think about what formats I want to bring in from the year and what I liked doing previously and what I'm done doing. And so I had a period where I did demo reviews. I had a period where I did movement tutorials. And then when I sort of felt like I've completed those, there was no more dopamine left making those videos anymore, or there was no more tutorials left to do when it came to movement. I had to tell myself, okay, look, what's the new sort of format to go for? And I try to throw in something new. And then I take, I mean, I'm really a nerd when it comes to YouTube. I watch every big YouTuber talk about YouTube, what works, what doesn't. I follow a lot of content creators, and at first I modeled myself more directly after people like Husky Starcraft, who did demo, like he did Starcraft demo reviews sort of, and then Purge, who did more tutorial-like content in Dota. And since then, I've sort of now got into more of my own lane, I feel like. And I've thought, okay, well, there's two things I really want to do. That's talk about the news because that's topical, that's fun, that's right now, and there's always news in Counter-Strike. And then the other thing is I want to talk about history. So I've been making a lot of green screen videos, going back over, oh, did you know the best North American IGL is your favorite Valorant player, Tarek? He used to play CS:GO, or talk about Stewie, or talk about the old Fnatic and how maybe they'd still be able to win today. Getting into stuff like that and teaching people history, I think, is really fun. But it's a mix of going, okay, the player base for CS has doubled since 2020. There's a lot of people that didn't know what happened in 2018, probably the most competitive year of CS. Let's make some history videos. Or the news videos. I don't have, I can't name another YouTuber that's just uploading every few days just talking about the news for CS. Well, who better to do it than me? I'm at half the tournaments that go on anyway. So I try to find a balance between like, I'm qualified to do it, it makes sense for me to do it, and it sounds like fun. And then I'm not stepping on the toes of other people who are in this network of Counter-Strike YouTubers all contributing to like a great sort of like section of YouTube. That's sort of how I like to look at it. So um, in terms of like my style, I like to just keep it as raw as possible. I think that's the way you can stand out the most and not get melded into other personalities. And so that's why I like to just throw up, that's why the videos look like I edit themselves, even though I send them to my editor to do. But I like to keep it super simple, just a little funny, more personality, bigger camera, and less scripting. I think those are the things for me.
But I kind of think that's the genius behind it. There's less scripting, it's funny, it's a bit tongue in cheek, it looks basic, but there's this methodical approach that you take to YouTube to ensure that your videos, sorry, actually resonate with people, which it's impressive, man. I like it. I like it when people get into the
Thanks.
weeds of YouTube and really like, you can tell that you are someone who analyzes things and other people that love to analyze YouTube. You can always tell. And out of the woodwork, as well as being a YouTuber, caster, came Boxer, this clothing brand now turned esports org. When did you decide to create this clothing label, or was it even meant to be a clothing label off the rip?
It was originally like when I first reinstalled Steam when CS:GO came out. I had uninstalled. I played 1.6 and I uninstalled because my grades were dropping. We've all been there. And then when I started playing again and I started becoming a YouTuber, I was like, okay, well, maybe I should think about the branding side of things. And so my name on Steam was just Boxer, and then I had my logo was the Boxer logo, and I just made that for myself as a Steam thing. And I named it after a famous StarCraft player named Slayer's Boxer, who I think epitomizes esports for me. And I thought, well, one day if I make this into a clothing brand, nobody's going to want to buy Launders gaming t-shirts. So why don't I try to make it its own entity? And one of my goals right now is to make Boxer bigger than me. So the biggest compliment for me would be someone buying a Boxer tee and not knowing who I am. So I really try to sort of distance myself from it. Um, I when I was in university, I had started a clothing company called Karma Clo, and I worked at Armani Exchange, and they had like a huge 75% discount on clothes, so I would buy like blanks off the rack for 75% off. Then I'd print on them, and then I'd sell them to my friends. And so before esports, I had already had an interest in fashion. I wanted to just do clothing in general. And then I saw it was just a great revenue stream for content creators. I thought it was so much better than donations where people are just throwing money at you like a stripper. I thought, why not give them something for the money that they're giving you? And then when you see them later at events, it's like you don't have to tell me you're my fan anymore. I see you wearing a shirt that I made 6 years ago. Like that's a real compliment. So I thought it just fit really nicely into the whole content creation game.
You say that you like to be disconnected from the brand on a personal level, but do you ever take the clothing or the collections to events and like give it out or sell it, or do you just keep it totally separate? Because I imagine that if you were allowed to do that, I don't even know if you are allowed to do that because obviously Counter-Strike events have their own stuff going on. But if you were allowed to do that, then I'm sure you would sell by the thousands because everyone knows you there.
Yeah, maybe it's a matter of capacity. Maybe I should like hire someone to like be in charge of that because I think I could at Blast for sure. I mean, I know I've been at Blast. I've been commentating for Blast. Like I think I'm outlasting some of the founding employees at this company now. At this point, I've casted every single event they've ever done. I've seen everybody come and go. But I've got a lot of friends here, so I could probably pull that off. But I think you're right. I mean, I think you just literally might be onto a strategy right now, Barney. So um, I've tried to. I think in the future, one plan is to get a booth going at events. I have sold clothes at my own events at Launders Land, and we do watch parties where I give a lot of boxer clothes away. If you're in Toronto and come to a like IEM Dallas watch party or something like that, that'll be a place to do it. But yes, I went to a golf place last week and I got a impromptu lesson from someone who was working there. Turns out the guy owned the place. And so I got this amazing lesson from the owner of a golf place right by where I lived. I came back the next day, brought him a boxer tee. So that's another thing that's great when you have a clothing company. You could just, leverage the free gifts.
Leverage. Yeah, for sure. Are you a golfer at all? You a fan or just
As
recreationally?
yeah, as of last month, but
Oh man, you're
I'm
gonna be
just
hooked.
learning.
Oh,
Yes,
it's
I am
it's
hooked.
it's
I don't know.
amazing, my friend. Oh my
Yeah.
god, it's amazing. You
What's
mentioned
your
it already.
handicap?
We have Oh, I'm 12, 14,
Okay.
16.
Okay.
Depends on the
Uh,
day.
nice.
Depends on the day.
Yeah.
My brother plays off scratch, so it's just one of those ones. We're a golf family.
Wow.
I
Nice.
know. Awful. But you mentioned it already, man. You mentioned Launders Land. What an awesome thing to put together for the community. Was the original concept of that just to bring more community-driven lands to Toronto because there weren't many, or was it just because you wanted to create an event and see kind of if you could?
Yeah, it was like I think in 2020 everything shut down. A lot of internet cafes and businesses that were just barely hanging on, really all closed, and that killed the heart of a lot of major cities around the world, and in Toronto especially. I think we had like a lot of cool places that weren't making a lot of money get boarded up, unfortunately, and you know I got into this game because of the local land scene. I know that the future pro players that will be at tier one events need these lands to be able to practice and get experience on stage. And the fact is, like everyone wants a thing to go to in Toronto. We have a massive gaming culture and especially Counter Strike. So for all those reasons, I was like, well, why don't we run a LAN? Um, and so we ran two of them. We on top of a couple watch parties, and we did like a 1v1 tournament. And yeah, the turnout's pretty incredible, to be honest. Like we had more spectators than players coming into the event, which is also something that no local lands really ever had when we were growing up. You'd have a few girlfriends and moms and stuff like that come to support people playing, but there wasn't really a huge sort of spectator draw. So we really had like we had like a liquid booth selling merchandise. We had a Shopify booth. We had an AMD booth. We had the Boxer booth. We had unlimited food and drink. We had a lot of draw to make the land feel more like a big event and just make it more fun for the players on stage who would be playing in front of people. But lands are very, very difficult to run, very expensive as well. But still, we are planning another one, so look out for that.
I love that. What was the response like from the fans and the attendees? Post event, you're thinking, did it go well? Were people just constantly reaching out to you afterwards saying, "Oh, let us know when the next one is"? I bet you were inundated with emails. And that's got to be the driving
Yeah,
force behind you doing your next one, right?
I think it's also like the businesses as well. I mean, there's like production companies and a lot of sponsors and businesses that are local that are like, well, this is really cool. Like a local computer store that we grew up shopping at to get computer parts is like, well, that's we know there's no land to attach ourselves to, and so just the idea that we can create jobs, I think, is actually a huge draw that I didn't realize before we started the event. Um, people. my goal was for people to meet their Discord friends in real life. That was just the whole angle for me. Like, you hang out with someone for 7 years playing games. Now you have an excuse to hang out together at like an event that has your common interest happening around you. And what it ended up being was, okay, we have all these tournament admins, we have production people, we have sponsors, and we have Canadian companies that want to get involved with it. And so I think that becomes an even bigger draw now, where it's you create a lot of connections and friendships, but then you also literally, are generating revenue, creating money out of thin air, bringing people together at the same time. And so I think all those things are really motivating to do it, even though it's hard.
It's got to be a nice, like, nostalgic moment for you as well, remembering what it was like to go to those lands all those years ago, and then to recreate it in your, you know, in the vision that you have for it, and scaling it out is going to be amazing. I can't wait to see what it looks like in the coming years. I'm going to have to make a little trip down to Toronto, I think, and come pay
Let's
you a
go.
visit. But yeah, speaking of nostalgia, looking back on, all those years at Counter Strike, you've talked about all those years at Blast. You're out surviving all of those founders of the companies as well. What was the biggest difference casting early CS:GO versus CS2 now?
Yeah, I think it's one of those things. It's such a cascade of a slow cascade of changes where if you look at an old broadcast, like I wouldn't even remember it was like that. The crowd megs were so raw back then. We were all just so much worse at the job, just straight up. We were casting in auditoriums. We're now at stadiums. We're going from CS:GO to CS2, where everybody has they've got a coach. They're complaining if they only have one analyst now. Like, that's how difficult it is to be a tier one team. They're asking for, the same monitor arms they've got in the practice rooms they've got on stage. They've got to have, like the demands are so much higher to create some like the more perfect gameplay that you see today. Whereas back then, it was plumbers and electricians running and shooting around corners. And now it's like, people are just, you got to take a shower after every round. Everyone's sweating so hard to save every dollar you can. Every peak is pixel perfect. Like, there's no one with bad crosshair placement anymore. Like, any average tier two player would have cleaned house back in 2013. So much more fierce, so much more competitive, so much more nuanced, because the game, I think, to an inexperienced eye looks really similar, but to someone who's watched for 10 years is almost scary. It's almost scary thinking about, how did he know that was the play coming out? It feels like everything is understood, even though we're watching with X-ray on. It feels like the players are too, and so just the level of gameplay, the amount of details going on, and then the overall just production quality, and then the fandom. We've got like the Austin majors. It's gonna be like 10,000 people every day for 4 days. Rio major had 3 stages of fans. Shanghai major had packed out group stage audience as well. So much more everything.
It's so amazing to see. I actually came down and checked out IEM Katowice 2 years
Oh,
ago,
nice.
and I was blown away. I just went and I just sat in the corner and was just like looking around. I've been fortunate enough to work with a few Counter Strike analysts, casters, hosts, and so kind of picking them out in the arena, and just the impact this game has, especially at the Spodek, like that arena for me. I was just like, that's just so cool. Like how slanted it is as well. Everyone feels like they're on top
Mm.
of you. Um, Honestly, like, it's such an amazing game to see. And I think that what you've pointed out there as well, with the kind of list of demands from these players, and like how, finite, or like how minute these details are that now can cost you a win or a loss. Who do you think has left or is going to leave the most impactful legacy in the community so far, maybe as a roster?
Okay. I mean, it might be easier to do player because you never know where
Yeah.
someone's gonna go. And I think if it was individual player, there's something that that I feel like it's gonna be Monacy, even though it's right now it's Zaiwu, right now it's last year it's Donk, and for like most of CS:GO it was simple. As soon as Monacy started playing this game, maybe it's because I'm a movement guy, but I don't think there's anybody that I've watched that I think knows more about Counter-Strike than he does. Every single detail. Then he's got the consistency. He's got I think he's great in front of a camera, which is a huge part of it. You're going to compete with someone like Simple, who's got so many like sort of iconic things about his personality and moments outside of the game specifically. So that's a big bet. Monacy's never been a number one player yet, but I think he's got all the makings of a phenom. And I think if I had to pick someone a little bit less likely, I'd say maybe Monacy when all is said and done. We look back 10 years from now.
Do you feel like Monacy would dominate your KZ movement tutorials?
Yes, I think he actually, he doesn't even. I'm not even sure he's played KZ, but I'm pretty sure he has come across and learned almost everything movement related that like a top level KZ player would try to teach him. He knows everything. That kid knows things.
Like I mentioned at the top of this interview, I checked out that CS2 profile on you, and it was really interesting to learn like so many cool like nuances about your life and how you grew up as well. And I thought to myself, do you know how you know you've made it? When your partner memorizes your opening quote before the match starts and can recite it on cue.
Yeah.
Digital high five for you, my friend. That was a
Thank you.
really cool moment. And is it nice to see your family, partner, and stuff like embrace gaming culture now? I mean, obviously it might have been for a while now, but I still have moments with my family, my partner. I have a 3-year-old of them all kind of like figuring out what I do for a living because they still don't really know. They still don't really know.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, like my mom's still never been to a tier one event. She's come to Launders Land, which is nice, but I think she still tells her friends that I do IT. I think, once I checked her phone and she had like the Blast Dream Link open on one of her other tabs, but I didn't know she actually watched. So I think it's still sort of a mystery to people generations before us. For my girlfriend, my fiance, she watches CS, she knows some of the players and things like that, but it's still not part of her world. And I like that sort of, I like having two different lives when it comes to ending the workday. So I think it's always nice that people understand it more. But honestly, I kind of liked being misunderstood when I was just starting out. Like I'm that kind of guy where when my friends, my girlfriends back then would be like, "What are you doing? Like, what is the point of this? Like, why don't you come out Friday night and instead of like play your ESEA main match, whatever the hell that is." I kind of liked knowing that this is one day going to work for me and that they don't understand it now. So I don't really have that anymore.
I felt the same way in 2019 when I did my first esports event, my friend. I felt the
Yeah.
same. I also got introduced to two legends today. Okay. First one being Michael. When you were reunited with him, I put my hand up. I cried like basically everyone in the YouTube comments. So I felt like a
Yeah.
little less unique in that regard. And also, your mum is a
Mm,
legend. Not
yeah.
only for embracing who you are, as all mums should, of course, but her only dream is for you to be happy. And as a parent, that's all that matters, and I can attest to that. So I just feel like the best way to end this conversation is: have you got any advice or any words of wisdom for the lovers and haters of Counter Strike?
Yeah. I mean, maybe you know, if you're a parent, I would say it can be hard to be like, take this massive risk and do something where there's, industry that hasn't even started yet and dedicate your whole life to it and everything. That might not be great advice, but the only reason that worked for me is because my mom trusted me. And I think there might be a time where you're going to have to trust your kid to do something you don't understand. And I think if you raise them right up until that point, then uh, you should be ready to be brave enough to allow them to try it. Uh, because I think, as Lil Wayne said once, you only live once. So there's that. When it comes to specifically content creation, which I think will go on for a very long time, um, try to find that Goldilocks zone between a niche that you love and something that is looking like it'll be successful. Because if no one's watching the game, there's no one to make videos for. You're probably not even going to enjoy it that much anyway, even if the game itself is amazing. So I don't think people should compromise on what they love. But um, I'd say, if you loved Quake, maybe you'll also love Counter Strike. Maybe Counter Strike's a better place to go for content creation. Try to find, try to have a good conversation with yourself, because which one you dedicate yourself to is probably going to be 5 to 10 year commitment, and you both want to make sure it's really fun for you, but you also want to make sure that there's a job for you later on as well. So and also don't be don't be upset. Yeah, don't be obsessed with the size of a game, because I think a niche is really powerful on the internet. And if you love something and it's growing, even if it's really small, then you should also trust that one day enough people will see how good it is just like you do. So don't get obsessed with either side of it, but think about both sides.
It's words of wisdom for sure. Launders,
Yeah,
I've got 3 rapid fire questions for you before I let you go. Is that cool?
sure. Yeah, let's do it.
First up, favorite CS map?
It's got to be Nuke for sure. Nuke, historic map.
I think I already know the answer to this one. Most memorable casting moment for you?
Yeah, that's Paris, man. The first major, the last major final. Me and Connor after 7 years of climbing. Yeah, it's got to be Paris.
Favorite CS gun and skin?
Okay. I got scammed for my Desert Eagle Blaze. That was my favorite skin. Uh, don't don't take photos of any QR codes you find on the internet, guys.
Oh man. Launders, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you, man. It's been short, but it's been sweet. And you know what? I feel like I've learned a lot. And you know what, man? Seeing what you're building within the Counter-Strike community and the stuff that you're doing outside of it for yourself, but also for the communities that you grew up in is awesome to see. And I can't wait to see how it scales over the years. And hopefully we'll meet in one person. I can give you a crisp high five in real life.
Yeah, I'd love that. Thanks. Great interview, Barney. Appreciate you.